Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to, cut through the noise, pull out the key insights from a whole stack of sources,
Yep.
and basically give you a shortcut to getting really informed.
Yeah, exactly.
And today, we're diving into something so basic it's almost, well, invisible.
Mhm.
The air we breathe.
Mhm.
What if, and this is the big question, what if that air holds the key to, unlocking huge human potential, tackling environmental crises, and even figuring out why babies cry?
It sounds pretty wild when you put it like that, doesn't it? But the material we looked at today, it really does introduce this pretty revolutionary air purification idea.
Right.
And it explores these massive implications,
Mhm.
effects on health, longevity, how sharp we are mentally, and
Mm.
even, the basic well-being of infants. It's quite a scope.
Absolutely. So our mission today is really to give you a fresh look at how maybe these environmental toxins are holding us back in ways we just don't realize,
Silently, yeah.
and show you how this completely new way of thinking about air quality might actually be, well, transformative. So let's start with the big picture. The source is paint. Where are we right now, according to them?
Well, the research suggests we're kind of at a critical point. It argues pretty strongly that environmental damage, air pollution, just the sheer amount of toxins around us.
It's a lot.
It is. And it's actively limiting how long we live and maybe even how smart we could be, our cognitive potential. It's a bold claim, basically saying our environment is capping us.
Wow. That is a powerful thought. And it seems they argue our usual fixes aren't really cutting it either, like traditional medicine.
Yeah, the material suggests medicine often deals with symptoms, maybe doesn't get to the root cause of aging itself.
Okay.
And then you have things like genetic modification. Exciting, sure, but the sources point out the risks, unintended consequences, mutations.
Right, there's always that concern. So if those aren't the full answer, what is,
Well-
according to these sources anyway?
It's fascinating. Their perspective is that the only truly sustainable way forward for a longer, healthier, maybe even smarter human race is to fundamentally eliminate these environmental toxins. Get rid of them.
So tackle the source,
Yeah.
not just the effects or fiddling with our genes.
Exactly. Tackle the source of the biological wear and tear, essentially.
Okay. And when we talk air toxins, most of us think, home air purifiers. We have them. But the sources say there are big limits there. Like HEPA filters, they seem pretty standard.
They are standard, and they're good at what they do. They remove particles down to 0.3 microns, which sounds tiny, dust, pollen, PM 2.5.
Yeah, that's okay.
But what they miss is crucial. They just can't grab the really small stuff. The ultrafine particles, PM 0.01, even smaller. These are the ones so tiny they can slip past our body's defenses, get deep into the lungs, even into the bloodstream.
Okay, that's not good.
Not at all. And HEPA filters also struggle with viruses or bacteria floating in those microscopic aerosol droplets. Plus, they completely miss toxic gases, VOCs, industrial fumes, that kind of thing.
So they're really only catching a fraction of the problem.
Pretty much, yeah. Doing only part of the job.
So this whole invisible world of pollutants is just sailing right past the filter.
Mm-hmm.
And the sources also flagged another method, some negative ion generators, saying they might actually cause problems.
Yeah, this is a really important point. Some devices release these negative ions freely into the room air.
Okay.
The issue is these free ions can cause particles already in the room to clump together, recombine in uncontrolled ways,
Making them bigger?
potentially bigger, maybe even forming new, more toxic compounds that you then breathe in and can settle in your lungs.
Yikes.
Plus, there's often a risk of generating ozone, which, for something that's supposed to clean the air is pretty bad. Ozone damages lung tissue.
Right, that seems counterproductive.
Totally. And it's also incomplete purification. It just charges the pollutants. It doesn't actually remove them from the air you're breathing.
Okay, so traditional methods are either missing stuff or potentially even adding problems. This leads us right to the main event then, this maze air purification system.
Yes.
The material presents it as, well, revolutionary. Designed for a 100% toxin-free environment, they even suggest it could let humanity evolve naturally, no gene editing needed.
It's a huge claim.
It is, calling it the key to human longevity and intellectual expansion. I mean, that's about as bold as it gets. What makes it so different?
It really comes down to a comprehensive, multi-stage approach. It's not just one trick. It's a whole process designed to hit every type of airborne threat. We can walk through it step by step.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Lay it out. Step 1 still involves HEPA, I guess.
It does, yes. You start there. It's the first line of defense, grabbing those larger particles, PM 2.5, dust, pollen, even microplastics.
The visible stuff, mostly.
Right, and trapping chemical fumes, too. It gets, what, 99.97% of particles above zero point 0.3 microns, so it clears that initial layer.
Got it. Solid start. Then step 2, negative ion charging and pathogen neutralization. Now, they were really clear this is different from those risky ionizers. How?
This is the key distinction. It does not release free ions into your room. Instead, all the air is forced through a controlled negative ion chamber inside the machine.
Ah, contained. Makes sense.
Exactly. Inside that chamber, pollutants get electrostatically charged and, crucially, neutralized. This process is engineered to actually break apart the molecular structure of viruses and bacteria.
So it inactivates them.
Renders them inactive, yeah. And it breaks up those aerosol clusters carrying pathogens, makes them harmless before they even get to the next stage.
Okay, clever. So it's contained, controlled, and actually neutralizes things. What happens to these charged neutralized particles then? Step 3.
Step 3 is electrostatic capture. Once these pollutants are negatively charged, they're drawn very strongly to high-intensity electrostatic collection plates. Think of it like super magnets for pollution.
Oh.
This pulls them out of the airflow permanently. Viruses, bacteria, those ultrafine particles we talked about, they get stuck, captured irreversibly. They're not getting back into your air.
That sounds incredibly thorough already. But then there's step 4, the labyrinthine maze structure. This sounds complex. Is it just a fancy name?
No, it's not just marketing. It's apparently the patented core of the system, and it's actually quite ingenious. The air doesn't just go through once.
It's cycled.
Continuously cycled through this, structured maze. It forces the air through multiple filtration stages over and over.
Why the maze shape?
That's the clever bit.
Yeah.
The air is forced to make these really sharp turns inside the maze. Now, those negatively charged ultrafine particles, the tiny ones HEPA misses, they're so small they have almost no mass.
Right.
So they can't just follow the sharp curve of the airflow. Inertia takes over. They basically keep going straight.
And smack into the walls.
Exactly. They collide with positively charged metal walls along the maze path. It's called electrostatic impaction. It forcibly captures even the tiniest, slipperiest particles.
Huh. Physics to the rescue.
Pretty much. And if any particle somehow misses the first wall, it gets caught at the next bend or the next. The source calls it near permanent absorption. It's complex tech, but that's the gist for us non-engineers.
That really does sound like a breakthrough. It explains how they can aim for such complete purification. So after all that, step 5 must be pretty simple.
Step 5 is basically the result. Final purification and ultra-clean air release. What comes out is just exceptionally clean, healthy air.
And the claimed benefits.
The sources suggest breathing this air leads to enhanced mental clarity, less fatigue, better long-term health, because you're getting this optimally purified oxygen supply to your brain, your organs.
It's not just preventing bad stuff, it's actively promoting good stuff, better function.
That's the argument, yeah. Enhancing well-being from the inside out.
Okay, and speaking of well-being, the sources then took this really surprising turn into what they call the silent language of babies.
Yeah, that section was really eye-opening.
It totally challenged my assumptions.
Yeah.
They're basically saying babies cry, often not because they're emotionally or spoiled, but because they're physically uncomfortable and literally can't tell us otherwise.
It reframes that whole experience, doesn't it? The sources detail how, right from birth, a baby's senses are just constantly bombarded, irritated by stuff in the air that we adults barely notice.
Like what specifically?
VOCs, those ultrafine particles down to PM 0.00001 fragrance molecules, maybe slightly elevated CO2 in a room, microtoxic particles from, I don't know, plastics or furniture.
And these aren't just like minor irritations for a baby?
Apparently not. According to this research, they actively irritate their nasal passages, the tiny sacs in their lungs, the alveoli, even their developing nerves. And a baby can't say, hey, my nose feels scratchy, or the air feels weird and it's making my head feel pressured. Crying is the only tool they have to signal that constant low-level physical distress.
It gets even heavier. The source talks about a nightly potential survival crisis for babies. That sounds intense. What's behind that?
They explain it as this continuous struggle, even during sleep. Low doses of toxins can activate free radicals.
Those are the damaging molecules, right?
Yeah, unstable molecules, leading to tiny bits of nerve inflammation, anxiety, just a brain unease. Then, if CO2 is a bit high in the room or oxygen slightly lower.
Which can happen in a closed bedroom.
easily. That makes the breathing faster, shallower, constantly interrupting deep restorative sleep.
Okay, I see.
And things like perfume or cleaning product residues in the air, they can mess with the baby's sense of smell development, cause a feeling of pressure, make it hard to fall asleep or stay asleep.
So it's not like they're sick, but their bodies are just constantly fighting these low-level battles.
Exactly. The material frames it as a continuous struggle, and crying is just the body's desperate, instinctual signal for help with that discomfort.
Right. So if that's the problem, the air,
Yeah.
what happens when you purify it to the level this maze system claims? What's the change?
The transformation described is pretty remarkable. When the air hits that standard filtering particles down to near zero, removing VOCs, plasticizers, toxic gases, stabilizing oxygen, balancing humidity, no fragrances.
Basically, truly clean air.
Truly clean air. The sources say the baby experiences genuine comfort, maybe for the first time. The need to cry diminishes or stops.
Not because they're trained not to, but because the reason is gone.
Precisely. They enter what's called a natural and stable body state. It's about removing the root cause of the discomfort, the irritation.
And this leads to that phrase they used, root cause parenting peace. That hits home. It really reframes crying as a signal of pain and the air as a major overlooked source of that pain.
Yeah, it shifts the whole goal. Not train the baby not to cry, but change the environment so the baby doesn't need to cry.
It makes perfect sense when you put it like that.
And this was supposedly the original motivation behind the maze system, to create a world without crying from birth. The idea that true happiness, or maybe peace, is found when a baby simply doesn't have that constant need to cry anymore.
So let's wrap this up. This deep dive, it's shown that air quality, it's way more than just avoiding a cold or allergies.
Much more fundamental.
It seems to touch on human evolution, how long we might live, how well we think, and even these really basic experiences of comfort or distress, especially for infants.
It really underscores how these invisible environmental factors shape us right from the start, things we often just ignore.
Which brings us to a final thought for you listening out there. If the air we breathe, something so basic, has this potentially huge hidden impact on our lifespan, our minds, even a baby's comfort, what other invisible things in our environment might be subtly shaping your well-being, your health, your potential in ways you haven't considered?
It's definitely something to think about. Maybe start noticing the environment around you a bit more and how it might be influencing your own life.
Mull that over. Until next time, keep diving deep.